June 26, 2013. A man passed away in a Lucerne hospital room. The Swiss doctors listed the cause as a stroke. The U.S. Justice Department listed him as a fugitive. For 30 years, he had lived in plain sight on a lakeside estate in Zug, Switzerland, commuting daily to an office that handled more oil than the strategic reserves of most nations. No official extradition was ever granted. 2 decades before he died, he had received a presidential pardon. On his last day on Earth, he was worth billions. The media called him a commodities trader. Here's the problem with that. He'd been a metal clerk at Philipp Brothers, dropped out of NYU, had no engineering degree, couldn't point to a single oil well he drilled. And yet, the most sanctioned regimes in the world, Iran, apartheid South Africa, Cuba, Libya, Iraq, kept handing him their crude. When investigators finally followed the oil, they found a spiderweb of shell companies, offshore accounts, banking relationships in jurisdictions chosen specifically because nobody asked questions there. Over 30 years, Snort's hundreds of billions of dollars in oil moved through his books. His documented trading margins explain a fraction of the fortune. So, where did the rest come from? People have tried to find out. They didn't get very far. 1954. Marc Rich is a refugee kid in New York. No college degree. He gets a job in the mailroom at Philipp Brothers, the biggest metal traders on Earth. He learns fast. He's ruthless. Most importantly, he realizes the future isn't metals. It's energy. In 1974, while the Arab oil embargo has the West on its knees, Rich does the unthinkable. He starts buying Iranian oil. The Shah falls. The Ayatollah takes power. American hostages are taken in Tehran. U.S. law forbids trading with Iran. Rich trades anyway, through a web of offshore corporations, Marc Rich Plus Company, AG in Zug, Clarendon Ltd. in Bermuda. He becomes the Ayatollah's lifeline. He sells Iranian oil to Israel, to South Africa, to anyone with cash. He builds the spot market for crude, inventing the very mechanism that lets oil move like money. The U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, a young Rudy Giuliani, indicts him in 1983. 65 counts. Tax evasion, racketeering, trading with the enemy. The biggest tax fraud case in American history. $100 million owed. Maybe more. Rich doesn't show up for trial. He flees to Switzerland the night before the indictment drops. He never returns. How does a mailroom clerk become the most wanted white-collar criminal in history? Partly because the 70s were wild, but also because Rich had a specific skill, making impossible oil disappear. Then there's the pardon. January 20th, 2001, Bill Clinton's last day in office. Marc Rich, fugitive number 1, gets a presidential pardon. His ex-wife, Denise Rich, had donated $450,000 to the Clinton Library, $100,000 to Hillary's Senate campaign, millions to the Democratic Party. The FBI investigates. The DOJ investigates. Congress holds hearings. Nobody goes to jail for pardon. But here's where things get stranger. While fugitive, Rich didn't hide. He expanded. He built Glencore, the biggest commodity trader on Earth. He financed the Russian oligarchs in the 90s. He moved aluminum for the KGB's successors. He fed China's industrial explosion. His office in Zug was a sovereign entity. Swiss law protected him. U.S. Marshals couldn't touch him. But the CIA knew where he was. The Mossad knew where he was. Rumors persisted for decades. Rich wasn't just a trader. He was an asset, moving oil for regimes the West couldn't touch officially. Iran-Contra whispers, missing Stinger missiles, intelligence kickbacks. The exact nature of his diplomacy remains classified, but it raises questions about why the most powerful intelligence agencies on Earth never grabbed a man living openly in a chalet 30 miles from Zurich. He ran this operation for decades. Then the money. Glencore goes public in 2011. IPO raises $10 billion. Rich had been pushed out years earlier, bought out by his lieutenants, Ivan Glasenberg and the team. But the buyout price? Never fully disclosed. The Paradise Papers in 2017 show the architecture. Hundreds of subsidiaries. Jersey, Guernsey, Cayman, British Virgin Islands. A holding company in Zug owns a trust in Jersey, which owns a company in Delaware. By the time investigators try following the trail, it's deliberately fragmented across multiple legal systems. Rich also structured his tax residency perfectly. He claimed he was a non-resident of Switzerland for tax purposes, paying lump sum for fate fiscal based on living expenses, not income. Meanwhile, his traders in London and New York made the actual money. The U.S. wanted taxes on global income. Switzerland wanted the jobs. Rich played them against each other like a violin. When journalists tried investigating the Iranian oil flows, the apartheid sanctions busting, the Cuban sugar deals, they hit walls. Swiss banking secrecy, corporate veil, national security exemptions. But the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations eventually found something. In the 80s alone, Marc Rich company sold over 200 million barrels of Iranian oil. At market prices, that's billions in revenue. Commissions on that volume? Hundreds of millions. Enough to buy a pardon? Maybe. Enough to buy immunity? Apparently. But there's one final detail that makes the whole picture even murkier. Rich died a free man in Switzerland. His funeral in Israel was attended by heads of state, intelligence chiefs, and billionaires. Shimon Peres gave the eulogy, a man indicted for trading with the enemy, eulogized by the enemy's intelligence partners. Here's what makes Marc Rich's story so disturbing. It's not just that he beat the rap, it's that the global economy needed him to beat the rap. The world runs on oil, but oil comes from nasty places. You need men with no flags, no morals, and no jurisdiction to move it. The offshore system worked exactly as designed. The commodity markets didn't just enable him. They were designed in a way that made someone like him inevitable. The indictment is still technically active in a drawer in New York. The oil still flows through Zug. The geometry doesn't.